It's May 30th, 1986. An 18-year-old girl makes a frantic phone call to a local bar in Coos Bay, Oregon. Her voice trembling, she tells her friend, "I'm in trouble." She's calling from a hotel payphone somewhere in the darkness. Before she can reveal her location, the line goes dead. That was the last time anyone ever heard from Joy Dee Shields. What happened in those final moments? What kind of trouble was she talking about? And why, nearly 40 years later, does her case continue to haunt a small coastal town and capture the attention of internet sleuths across the country? This is the story of Joy Dee Shields, a case that began with a night out at a local bar and ended with one of Oregon's most enduring mysteries. A case where family dynamics, small-town politics, and investigative limitations collided to create a perfect storm of unanswered questions. Joy was just 5 feet tall, weighing only 102 pounds, with brown hair and hazel eyes. On that fateful night, she was wearing a burgundy leather jacket, white tank top, bleached blue jeans, and white tennis shoes. These details would become crucial identifiers, frozen in time on missing person reports that still exist today. But Joy was more than just physical descriptions and clothing details. She was an 18-year-old trying to navigate life in a small Oregon coastal town. Coos Bay in 1986 wasn't the connected world we know today. Information traveled slowly, resources were limited, and when someone disappeared, the window for finding them could close quickly. The night Joy vanished began like any other. She had plans to go to Shanigan's, a local bar that served as a social hub for young people in the area. What seemed like a routine evening out would become the launching point for a mystery that has consumed investigators, family members, and now, a growing community of online researchers for decades. According to witness accounts that emerged later, Joy arrived at Shanigan's that evening. But she wasn't alone in her plans. Several people who knew her were also planning to be there that night. The timing of arrivals and departures would become critical pieces of a puzzle that investigators are still trying to solve. One witness, who we'll call Carol to protect her privacy, later reported that she and another friend named Debbie had planned to meet Joy at the bar. But when they arrived, Joy had already left. She had been there, but departed just minutes before her friends showed up. This timing would prove to be devastating. The sequence of events that followed reads like something from a thriller, except this was real life, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Joy, having left Shanigan's alone, somehow found herself in a situation dire enough that she felt compelled to call back to the bar for help. When that phone rang at Shanigan's later that night, Debbie answered. The conversation was brief but chilling. Joy's voice came through the receiver, urgent and scared. "I'm in trouble," she said. She explained she was calling from a hotel payphone, but before she could provide the crucial detail of which hotel or where she was located, the call ended abruptly. Debbie immediately ran to Carol with the information. Both women understood the gravity of what they had just heard. This wasn't a casual check-in or a simple change of plans. Joy was in genuine distress, reaching out to the one place she knew her friends would be, hoping for help that would never come. But there's another version of events that adds even more complexity to this already puzzling case. Another witness, who we'll call Beth, claimed she was actually with Joy at Shanigan's that night. According to Beth's account, Joy approached her before leaving and said she was departing with a man. Joy even provided Beth with the man's name. This detail is crucial because Beth later provided this name to law enforcement. A potential suspect, a lead that could have broken the case wide open. But according to Beth, the investigation into this individual never gained traction. The lead, like so many others in this case, seemed to disappear into the bureaucratic machinery of a small-town police department with limited resources. The contrast between these two accounts raises important questions. Was Joy alone when she left Shanigan's, as Carol's version suggests? Or did she leave with a man, as Beth claims? Both witnesses seem credible. Both were there that night, yet their stories don't align perfectly. This discrepancy highlights one of the biggest challenges in missing person cases, especially those from decades past. Memory can be unreliable. Witnesses may have different perspectives on the same events, and the passage of time can blur crucial details. But in Joy's case, these conflicting accounts might hold the key to understanding what really happened. What makes Joy's disappearance even more troubling is what we know about her family situation. Multiple sources suggest that Joy's family circumstances were complicated. Some accounts indicate that her immediate family may not have been as involved in searching for her as one might expect when an 18-year-old daughter goes missing. One of Joy's friends from that time period later shared a heartbreaking perspective. She described calling Joy's parents repeatedly, visiting their house multiple times, desperately seeking any information about Joy's whereabouts. The response she received was always the same. No, they hadn't heard from Joy. But what struck this friend as particularly disturbing was the apparent lack of emotion or concern from the family. No tears, she recalled, and it seemed like no one was worried. This observation paints a picture of a family either in deep denial, overwhelmed by circumstances, or perhaps dealing with dynamics that outsiders couldn't fully understand. However, this account is disputed by others who knew the family. Another community member later contradicted this narrative, stating that Joy's sister and family were devastated and heartbroken by her disappearance. They insisted that the family did look for Joy, challenging the perception that her disappearance was met with indifference. If you're finding this case as compelling as I am, and you want to see more deep dives into cold cases that deserve attention, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're building a community of people who believe these stories matter, and your support helps us bring these forgotten cases back into the light. These conflicting accounts of the family's response highlight how complex the human element can be in missing person cases. Grief manifests differently in different people. Some families become hyperactive in their search efforts, mobilizing entire communities. Others may appear to withdraw, processing their trauma privately. Neither response necessarily indicates guilt or innocence, care or indifference. But in a small town like Coos Bay, perceptions matter. If the community believed Joy's family wasn't adequately searching for her, it could have impacted the level of attention and resources her case received. One classmate of Joy's made a particularly insightful observation. Joy didn't have the family to push the police. The town is and was very backwoods, even more so back then. This comment reveals something crucial about how missing person investigations can succeed or fail based on factors that have nothing to do with the actual evidence. Cases with vocal, persistent families who can navigate bureaucratic systems often receive more attention. Cases without that advocacy can languish in filing cabinets, becoming cold before they ever really had a chance to be solved. The Coos Bay of 1986 was indeed different from today. This coastal Oregon community, while beautiful, was relatively isolated. Communication technology was limited, forensic science was far less advanced, and investigative resources were stretched thin across vast rural areas. When someone disappeared, especially someone from a complicated family situation, the window of opportunity could close quickly. Captain Ura Washburn, a 25-year veteran of the Coos Bay Police Department, later acknowledged that Joy's case, along with several other disappearances from that era, are presumed to be homicides. People, even teenagers, do not simply disappear, leaving behind valued possessions and baffled and broken-hearted families, Washburn explained. This official acknowledgement is significant. It means that despite the lack of a body or crime scene, investigators believe Joy was murdered. This conclusion isn't reached lightly. It's based on patterns of behavior, the circumstances surrounding her disappearance, and the simple statistical reality that voluntary disappearances of this nature are extremely rare. The investigation into Joy's disappearance revealed something troubling about the broader context of crime in Coos Bay during the 1980s. Joy wasn't the only person to vanish during this period. Jeremy Bright disappeared in August 1986, just months after Joy. Kirby Dessy vanished in January 1987. This clustering of disappearances suggests either a very unlucky coincidence or something more systematic. What makes Joy's case particularly compelling in 2025 is how it's experiencing a renaissance through digital investigation. Online communities dedicated to solving cold cases have discovered Joy's story, and their fresh perspectives are yielding surprising developments. Recently, a Reddit user made a post that sent shockwaves through the true crime community. They wrote, "I found a doe years ago who looked similar to my mom, and my family literally all looks identical. Her sisters are all 2 years apart, 8 of them, and they could be twins. I made a post about her on an old account, and eventually DNA connected us and identified her." This user's success story demonstrates the power of genetic genealogy and family resemblance analysis in solving decades-old cases. But what's even more intriguing is what happened next in Joy's case. Another Reddit user, clearly moved by Joy's story, reached out with a stunning revelation. "Do you know her parents' names? I can't imagine you'd know any of her family history. But her picture struck me as possibly having a family resemblance to my family members who also have the last name Shields. Joy is a common first and middle name for girls born in that part of my family tree." The user continued, "I don't know, something is just pulling at me to try to find out if she is a relative. I'm probably wrong, but I'd like to look into it a little if you have any family info you're willing to share." This represents exactly the kind of breakthrough that can crack cold cases wide open. Family connections, genetic links, and genealogical research have revolutionized missing person investigations. What seemed impossible in 1986 is now achievable through DNA databases and online family trees. But the Reddit community's involvement in Joy's case also reveals the emotional complexity that families of missing persons face. Another user shared their painful experience. "Gone through the same with my biological mom. I lost her in being adopted. I lost her again when I was 16 and wanted to get to know my real mom, but I had to cut her out thanks to her addiction, and then she went missing." This person's story illustrates why some families might appear less engaged in search efforts. The user explained, "Me and my half-brother are looking for her, but we also want some level of privacy. YouTube true crime fans have put the fear in us, so to speak, especially after how some interacted with our biological family when our cousin was murdered. The fear of public scrutiny, online speculation, and invasion of privacy can actually hinder investigations. Families may withdraw from public appeals not because they don't care, but because they've experienced harassment or unwanted attention from amateur investigators. If you're realizing how complex these cases really are, and you want to support the families still searching for answers, smash that like button. Every engagement helps these stories reach people who might have the missing piece of information. Another Reddit user who had experienced the missing persons process firsthand offered this perspective. "Having been through the missing persons process, it breaks my heart when there are assumptions about what family have or haven't done. When my friend went missing, it was reported to police, but they didn't raise it as a formal missing persons report. This reveals a critical gap in how missing person cases are handled. Even when someone is reported missing, it doesn't automatically trigger a comprehensive investigation. Bureaucratic delays, classification issues, and resource limitations can mean that crucial early hours and days are lost." The user continued, "When we did get it raised, they did act, but they used the missing persons report date as the date he went missing, not the actually date it was initially raised. There was a bit of action, but then very, very little as time went on. This administrative failure could be devastating in a case like Joy's, where timing was everything. If her disappearance wasn't immediately classified and investigated as a serious missing person case, valuable evidence could have been lost forever." The Reddit user's experience also highlights how quickly the public loses interest. People get annoyed with you when you keep contacting them. I had a very grouchy warming shelter person send me an email saying they hadn't seen him and to stop contacting them. I'd only emailed them twice. This social fatigue around missing person cases explains why some families might appear to give up searching. It's not that they've stopped caring, it's that they've exhausted their options and encountered resistance from a community that wants to move on. What's particularly exciting about the current Reddit activity around Joy's case is the potential for genetic connections. The user who noticed family resemblances and shared the surname Shields represents exactly the kind of breakthrough that has solved other cold cases. Modern genealogical research has revealed that many missing persons cases involve family connections that weren't apparent at the time of disappearance. Sometimes victims were estranged from family, sometimes they were using different names, and sometimes family members simply didn't know about distant relatives who might be missing. The fact that Joy is reportedly a common name in this Reddit user's family tree, combined with the shared surname and physical resemblance, creates multiple points of potential connection. If this lead proves accurate, it could provide investigators with crucial information about Joy's background, family history, and potential reasons someone might have targeted her. This case shows us that no disappearance is ever truly cold, as long as people care enough to keep looking. If Joy's story has moved you, if you believe every missing person deserves to be found, then subscribe to this channel and help us amplify these voices that refuse to be silenced. The truth about what happened to Joy Dee Shields on May 30th, 1986, is still out there waiting to be discovered. And thanks to the power of digital investigation and communities of people who refuse to let these cases be forgotten, that truth might be closer than we think.